You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Hymas.
And today we're doing a manga recap of One Piece chapter 1096, titled Kumachi, which funny enough is Travis's nickname for me when nobody else is listening. As usual, we're going to be discussing spoilers for the One Piece manga up until this chapter, so if you have not yet read chapter 1096, be sure to do so now for free on the Viz website or the Shonen Jump app. Linked in the show notes as always. And remember, all new One Piece chapters are available to read for free up to 3 weeks after their official release or whenever you want if you're subscribed to Shonen Jump, which we are and do recommend. I know when I said that, Travis was probably like, John, you're going to tell him about that time we like escaped that very traumatic situation, and then we were just like super happy and like we looked at each other and started crying.
Yeah, you're to share all of our deep secrets. We're not close to our final saga yet.
That's right. I do have a declaration, Travis, because you and I, we've never met in person, but I think it's going to happen before One Piece ends. Travis and I will meet face to face and do some kind of live show. It's got to, like, we got to manifest it, right?
I don't live that far away.
We're in the final saga. One Piece could end within decades. So what are you going to do, right?
You're so positive.
Oh, man. Now, I know a lot of you are probably wondering, a One Piece live show, but that would require so much correspondence. That would require, all kinds of like messages using text, the internet, wireless communications. Now, unfortunately, we are technologically illiterate. We don't have technology entwined in the whole Rookie Pirate Radio universe.
John.
What's wrong, Travis?
John,
you okay?
Yeah. So I just wanted to stop you there really quick and just let you know that that we do actually have technology for this.
Wait, what? We have the budget now?
We do. Yeah. It turns out email accounts are affordable, and we have one.
You're joking.
No.
We have an email account.
We do.
Okay, but what is it? You'll have to prove it. What's the evidence?
So it's rookiepirateRadio@gmail.com.
Slow down, Travis. You're just throwing words and letters at me. Rookie Pirate what?
RookiepirateRadio@gmail.com. It's the name of our show so that people know that it's us.
The name of our show. You're right. It is. It's Rookie Pirate Radio. That's the name of the podcast. And Gmail. That's Google email. I'm putting all the pieces together. I'm like a One Piece theorist.
There you go.
Now, are you saying that the One Piece is our email address?
That's exactly what I'm saying right now. Yeah, that seems to be where we've ended up.
That sounds
there
cool.
all along.
I'll check our email, but I don't know. Email's fine, but it's not like other people can like see our email. So, I mean, we can't like talk to each other in a public forum where people can like jump into the conversation. So, who knows? Maybe the technology will catch up to us. What's wrong?
Stop you there.
You all right, Travis?
I've been passed a note here that says that. Let me adjust my glasses here.
From our producer, Rookie D Pirate.
Rookie D Pirate. And it says here, there's a Discord. I don't understand why you guys keep forgetting that we have a Discord because you're signed into your Discord at all times. Oh, yeah, the Discord. Right, the Discord server.
Discord. Wait, what's Discord?
Discord is an application where you can go into effectively little chat rooms with little sub chat rooms, and in our cases just constantly talk about One Piece spoilers.
Wait, so it's like Slack but cool?
Yeah, and mostly for gamers, but it's still okay.
Wow, I can't wait to check it out. But wait, are you trying to tell me that you and I are on this Discord chatting with listeners of Rookie Pirate Radio and fellow One Piece fanatics on a daily basis?
Yeah, and sometimes those fanatics that are chatting with us are also asking where our free rent episode is, and
that's a sore subject.
Yeah, where did we put that?
Where did we put? I lost it. Wait, I'm getting a note from our producer, Rookie D Pirate. Oh yes, the reason the free rent episode didn't come out is because you guys are terrible at scheduling and don't pay me, your producer, money. Huh. There's a lot of
Interesting.
truth that I just read in that message.
Yeah, just a little bit. This has gone completely off the rails.
Well, yeah, it's
So-
rookiepiratradio@gmail.com.
We'll talk to you, producer, after the show, but for now.
That's right. For those of you who are wondering, wait, who is Rookie D Pirate? Where can I follow them on social media? Unfortunately, Rookie D Pirate keeps a low profile, such a low profile that we don't even know who they are. But no, we have a big chapter and to talk about, and we did want to do Freerin last week. Unfortunately, it did end up happening that we could not schedule a time together. Very unfortunate, but we are still going to do the Freerin anime roundtable. We promise. Not sure exactly when, because we do have no break next week, so we still have more One Piece to go. But we should be able to get this roundtable out before we reach the point of no return here for Freerin's first season. That said, Travis, is this the first time we didn't release something in a week?
Yeah, I think it is. Well, I guess I should say it's the first time we've unintentionally missed a week.
Okay. Yeah, it might have happened before when we did it on purpose. I don't remember. But yeah, I feel like that's okay. We can take breaks once in a while. Who's counting?
I hope they'll have some mercy on us, at least a little bit more mercy than some of the celestial dragons we see in this chapter.
What a great segue, Travis. It's like you've been podcasting professionally for years. We are going to talk about One Piece 1096 right now. We're going to go into these main beats, and we've got another reader request. No big surprise there. So we see Zoro, it says Zolo, playing musical chairs with chihuahuas. And, I generally don't know how the people who write these things in to Oda, I don't know how they come up with this stuff. It's like a step removed from creative and imaginative, and it's just random. It's just sort of like, I want to see this, but why do they want to see this? I don't know. And I'm not complaining. I want more of it. Although I don't want it more than I want another cover story. I want another cover story very, very badly. By the way, Travis, I forgot to mention, I did want to bring this up before we even get started. The anime, hopefully we have time at the end, because I did want to talk to you about how the anime has been doing. For those of you listening, in a timely release fashion, you haven't checked out the anime lately. The latest episode was fantastic. It made me feel emotions. So maybe we'll talk about it in more detail later. But anyway, back to Kumachi. That's the name of this chapter. So, okay. All right. So the chapter kicks off with the beginning of the God Valley native hunting competition. Truly one of the most despicable things, Travis, I think we have ever seen in this manga. There is a high bar. Let's be clear. But what's going on in this chapter, the actual atrocity of it, I'm not sure. We've seen worse. If we did, it would have to be the Celestial Dragons causing it. And I'm not sure we've seen them be this collectively despicable in a way that is just blood curdlingly, it makes my blood boil. That's the metaphor. But also, yes, we are still in the Kuma flashback. There's no back to Egghead thing going on here. We're fully in the flashbacks in full swing. And the Celestial Dragons, we see them hunting the natives. They explain these rules, and there's points and stuff. It's disgusting. I don't even want to go into detail with it. We're talking about the natives of this island, a bunch of captives, slaves that have been brought in. A lot of these people are just kids. We see kids here with targets on their backs. I genuinely am just Oda is not playing around. He is sort of just coming in for the kill here, right?
It is very, very explicit what this is, because these are the residents of God Valley. They call them natives in the chapter. That's probably on purpose. Mm-hmm. They're not even affiliated with the world government. This is an unaffiliated island that the Celestial Dragons have just decided they're going to turn into the Hunger Games. And I look at this, and everything from there are some really special ones. They dehumanize them. You're watching a lot of those steps of what a genocide looks like in real time. And, wouldn't you know it, now we know where Doflamingo got the idea for the late stage Dressrosa stuff.
Right.
Here it is.
For those of you who forgot, Doflamingo, definitely a celestial dragon. In fact, I saw some people speculating, and we don't usually chatter like this during the main beats, but I feel it's warranted, speculating that he is somebody who would have become a Holy Knight at some point, based on like what we've seen of him and the relationship between the Holy Knights and the Celestial Dragons, and like that the dichotomy of like how powerful they are. But anyway, back to the chapter. It's a tough one. We quickly see Garling. That's Saint Garling. I hate even calling him that. I mean, we see this guy just like murder people like indiscriminately. He is just such a villain. We quickly see Garling and a few other world nobles who may also be Holy Knights. It's a little unclear who's a Holy Knight and who's not. There's a panel later on where there are a couple other characters that Garling refers to as Holy Knights. In this quick kind of panel, we see a couple characters who look pretty competent. They probably are, but we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves there. But yeah, we get a few new introductions to a few new characters here, and we're not 100% sure who they might be yet. But we're seeing them gear up to begin this nightmarish competition for prizes that include, for sure, we know devil fruits. We know there's some kind of treasure on the island, which we'll get to that. And apparently some kind of trophy. One of the characters refers to a trophy. And that could be like one of the devil fruits that they're talking about. It could be something else we're not aware of. That's kind of unclear at the moment. We cut to Kong, who was Fleet Admiral at the time. And so he's back at Marine headquarters, and he's calling Garp to cut his vacation short in order for Garp to go to God Valley, because information about the Celestial Dragons being there for what Garp thinks is some kind of school trip or something has apparently been leaked. And the Celestial Dragons stole a mysterious treasure from the pirates on Hachinosu and are in serious danger. Garp has no interest in helping out until Kong mentions that Roger is involved, prompting Garp to immediately jump into action, which is pretty funny. Back in God Valley, Ivankov explains that the Celestial Dragons are wiping out the natives here in order to plunder the island's resources, and no one's going to be allowed to survive, even if they last all 3 weeks of the competition. They are just trying to give them false hope that they could survive, because that would be more fun, and they are evil. A shark fishman, who I don't think we've met before, breaks off their chains, and Ginny explains that their key to survival is stealing one of the prized devil fruits, either the pawpaw fruit or the mythical azure dragon fruit. She only mentions these two, but we can kind of surmise that there are still other devil fruits. Again, not super 100% clear yet. Ginny brilliantly leaked a message to the outside 2 weeks ago to hopefully create enough chaos for them to reach the center of the island where the fruits are. Kuma selflessly volunteers to be their decoy for the scheme, since he's big and hardy, which wins him the affections of both Ginny and Ivankov. We then see the Rocks pirates, along with tons of other ships, bombarding the coast, and we see a dazzling panel of the Rocks crew, minus Rocks himself. We still don't get to see him. Rocks apparently went ahead, and then we get to see this full panel of the rest of the crew. So that includes Whitebeard, Shiki, Buckingham Stussy, Charlotte Lin, Kaido, Gloriosa, John, no relation, and a couple other mysterious faces that we'll of course have to speculate on. And as chaos begins to erupt as hoped, we next see the Roger pirates show up as well, and Garling and the Holy Knights gear up to fight them, and Garp and his subordinates also arrive in full force, as well as, you guessed it, Bogart is here, and he is not messing around. Now, while all this is happening, Kuma and Ivankov find the devil fruits, just the two of them. So again, a little curious why they only found those two, and if there really were more, like we saw in that panel last week. But regardless, or 2 weeks ago, Lin takes the fish fruit before Ivankov can eat it. We know she's later going to give it to Kaido. But Kuma manages to eat the pawpaw fruit before she can take that one too. But right then, J. Garcia Saturn shows up. And he's not in his like bull demon form, but he still has some lightning stuff going on. He shows up and attacks Kuma, calls him the Buccaneer Boy, tells him that his people will have to vanish for good because he dares say he wants to be like Nika and save as many of these unfortunate people as he possibly can. We get a super brief look at more of the wild insanity of God Valley about to unfold, but of course, we cruelly jump ahead. We don't get to see it anymore. It's very sad. But we do jump ahead. We skip a whole bunch of stuff that happens in the meanwhile to the Sorbet Kingdom in the South Blue. So somehow Kuma, Ivankov, and Ginny made it out of God Valley, and Kuma actually saved 500 people in the process. We could probably surmise that the reason we don't see anything else is because it involved characters that I don't think Oda is ready to get into yet. So there's got to be more to this that we're probably going to see later. Ivankov calls Morgan, who is like a teenager at the time, based on the ages that I could see, but is still apparently working in the newspaper. Okay. He calls him a hack for only reporting on Garp's heroics and that they have no idea what happened on the island after what happened. Ginny starts calling Kuma Kumachi, and Ivankov tells him he has the hands of liberation that set people free. We also discover that Kuma's family ran a church, which is why he's seen praying, and later, of course, he has that Bible, as we know. Ivankov eventually leaves to go to sea and make the most of his freedom, and Ginny says she's going to stay with Kuma and have a kid with him someday named Bonnie. Oh, wait, no, she doesn't say that. I just read that in my head. And Kuma himself says he will never forget Ivankov's face, which... Travis, he's never going to forget Ivankov's face, okay? That's never going to happen in Marineford when Ivankov... I can't. It's too sad. The tears of liberation. Ginny and Kuma then start to live a peaceful life together. They even make friends with two kids who look like the two members of Bonnie's crew years later. If you were on our Discord, you would have seen us chattering and sharing screenshots of that fun stuff. The chapter ends with the two of them having enough food to feel full for maybe the first time in their lives. They cry together because they're so happy. And that's where the story ends. Nothing bad ever happened to them. They lived happily ever after. The end. No break next week because the story's over, right? Nothing bad.
Yeah, that was the One Piece the whole time. Was a good meal, and these children definitely won't grow to suffer.
No,
probably egregiously. Boy howdy, what a setup for just misery. As if we didn't already know it was going to be misery. Oh boy.
Did this chapter meet your expectations, Travis? Because I know going into this week, I mean, the hype for this chapter, once Japan got its hands on it, I mean, we were already getting heads up of like, hey, everybody, just so you know, this week's chapter is going to ruin your whole sleep schedule. You're not going to be able to sleep. You're going to be like imagining just the Rocks Pirates, not silhouette, but the Super Smash Brothers Choose Your Fighter panel.
Right? Yeah, like it's completely it is a who's who, right? Like see what he did there?
No pun intended, right?
No pun intended, but like what a rogues gallery. I do think that it's what I expected though, at least in terms of, when we talked before about, how much of this is going to be God Valley, how much of this is going to be centered on Kuma. I think we both kind of understood that this was probably not going to take, the next 12 weeks and be about God Valley exclusively. We're going to get the story of Bartholomew Kuma here.
I think we were pretty sober in that, and you shouldn't get our hopes up there.
I mean, if we got this vibe back with Kaido too, where there wasn't that much of Kaido's backstory and people were very disappointed, but it's very clear, if it wasn't clear before, it's very clear now that there is a lot of moving pieces on this one island that we're not yet ready to dig into. I mean, one of the central characters... This was
Marineford before Marineford, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, clearly, like, we have characters who are playing around in here that back when we were getting Kaido's flashback, which realistically speaking wasn't that long ago. You mentioned the anime. It really wasn't that long ago. And we would have never been able to do his flashback properly if we did God Valley then, because there'd be this guy running around we know nothing about, but really, really want to, right? Like it's clear that this is going to get dropped a few more times, maybe in Egghead, probably in the future as we go. It's the final saga, not the final arc. So,
I mean, just the Shanks and Garling stuff needs to be explained. And there seems to be a lot going on there. There
seems to be a lot going on, period. For example, you didn't even mention this, but we do, for 2 panels, pop on over to Full-Aled. And the implication there is that the Rocks Pirates didn't fully control the island at that time.
Yeah, we do know that Wang Ji controlled the island in the present day up until Blackbeard took it over and killed him. So just want to stamp that speculation here, because I know some people were thinking that we saw Wang Ji Achoku, right? In this one panel, we see this guy in like this like a helmet, and people were like, "Is that him?" And you're like, "No,
I'm
that
pretty
can't
sure
be
it's
him."
not the helmet one. I think we've seen him before.
We've seen him in Thriller Bark. So, look, I'm not alone anymore in my speculation that Thriller Bark is like basically God Valley, or what's left of it, or at least it has some connection to God Valley, Travis, because Artur, the YouTuber Library of O'Hara, I think he also goes by, has also bought some stock into this theory. He doesn't fully buy into it, but he poked at a few things about it. But Travis, I'm just saying there is just way too much God Valley connection to Thriller Bark at this point. There just is. There's the fact that Moria, who defeated Moria, was Kaido, wasn't it? And also, we see these zombies. We see these zombies like the guy with like the claws. We see, I think, Silver Axe, or somebody who may be Silver Axe. I saw some speculation that the guy who kind of has like a hat, he kind of has a face similar to X Drake. I've seen some people speculate that that's Hero Luke.
That Artur speculated that was Hero Luke, but that
he wasn't the only one. I saw a few people buying into that, and I think that's pretty interesting to consider. I know you're the biggest Drum Island fan on this podcast, so
I do think it's interesting since the timeline is possible.
It fits.
The scale of what this could be, you know, when we get to the broad strokes of everything and actually sit down and spend some time here, I mean, this could radically change our perspectives of, I mean, it kind of has. I mean, Gloriosa being here has already radically changed at least
that really blew my mind. Well, I know a lot of people thought it was going to be Shaka, like that she was part of the crew, and apparently she still maybe is, but we just don't see her here.
So she would have been the Pirate Empress during that time, right?
Right.
One of them would have been on Amazon Lily, so it could be.
But she said that she was an outlaw at one point, right? I don't know if she said she was part of Rocks, but
most people were putting Shaki as a Rocks pirate because of an SBS answer, which is not itself canon. But let's be honest, that's where a lot of canon. I mean, there's literally an image in this chapter that calls directly back to an SBS. So we know that can affect the story. So a lot of people have had the working theory that they left together originally and then Shaki went back, or maybe they traded off, maybe it's a legacy thing. It's hard to say right now. It's one of those things where you kind of have to question in their dialogue, is Gloriosa being catty to Stussy over like Whitebeard, or is she just being normal catty? Like, who was Gloriosa's love sickness, basically her Luffy, right, so to speak? Is it Rocks? It doesn't seem that way. She seems to be behaving pretty normally, so kind of up in the air question.
I kind of buy that they would both kind of be obsessed with Whitebeard, but if the love sickness didn't kill her, I don't know. It has to be
somebody, right?
Yeah, it's a little suspect. I've seen some people be like, "Oh, maybe it was Zebek." I don't know. I feel like there's still more there that we'll probably get later.
And there has to be a point where Shaki meets Rayleigh too, right? Because the implication there is Rayleigh is Shaki's Luffy. So
I keep getting there's Shiki, Shaka,
right?
I can't.
Right. Shiki is in this chapter. Holy crap! We haven't even.
This is his canon appearance. He's always been canon. But it's the first time he's shown up in the manga. So he was in Strong World,
which isn't canon, notably.
But I think it's a case of like, hey Oda, can you give us some of your notes? Like, can we borrow some stuff? Like, and he's just like, yeah, sure, whatever.
The chapter 0 or whatever he did is technically canon, but the movie isn't. Having him here is good. That's the main takeaway. Is we no longer have to split the hairs. Hey, here he is. He's here.
Yeah. So he's here. He's ready to go. This is quite a panel. That's clearly, the future Captain John. Now, there's the other thing where apparently a treasure was stolen and brought over by the Celestial Dragons. A lot of people have been saying, is that Captain John's treasure? Is that going to be part of the equation here? We know, of course, Buggy is after that. We saw Captain John, the zombie, on Thriller Bark. Again, there's so much Thriller Bark happening here. It really is astounding to me.
It would make sense. Let's dig the Thriller Bark thing back up now that we have some dough to work with here. It would make so much sense for Moria to unintentionally or intentionally end up with pieces of this island, because as you pointed out, he lost to Kaido. Well, who could go toes with Kaido, the strongest man in the world? Well, how about other people who were there at his biggest fight, right? We know Kaido's life was in danger at the end of this fight. It required Linlin to give him the devil fruit in order to spare him. So
the island itself disappeared. You know, it's in the West Blue. Thriller Bark, we know, is from the West Blue. Characters like Hogback is from the West Blue.
Bodies around, or he's been going around collecting pieces of this history the whole time and putting it in one spot.
He was a kid at the time.
Yeah,
I could totally see it. Because people have said, like, oh, he's probably not here. That doesn't really make sense. Okay, that's fair. But I could see Moria being kind of obsessed with this just because of, like, it is an incident that's been lost to history. And, like, you know, if it turned out that Moria was just some kind of, you know, obsessive history, you know, lost history, true crime podcast, you know, conspiracy theorists, like there's all kinds of angles that could work here. So, yeah.
And that's why it doesn't look exactly the same, right? Because he's been hodgepodging this back together like a zombie. Like that actually makes a lot of sense.
The fish man I think we see there looks like he could be one of the zombies in the armor. I mean, it really does kind of fit. A couple of people also put the timeline together. So impressive with Linlin. Apparently, it looks like Linlin might be pregnant as we see her here with one of the, because I think Parasparrow is already born at this point. And also we see Strussand. Was that his name? Or her first,
he's like
her first crew member, and you know, there's
in
still
the corner, like under Whitebeard's arm.
A lot of people have said that he's like the father of Parasparrow, most likely. So he's hanging out, which gross considering the ages, but you know, we don't have to get into that, I guess. So this is pretty wild. You know, seeing Kaido as kind of like the runt of the litter. Is just kind of amazing. Seeing Whitebeard trying to lead a crew that is basically a lot like the Blackbeard crew. They're all just kind of in it for themselves. They're all sort of like every pirate for themselves mentality, with a few exceptions. Like Stussy is obsessed with Whitebeard, as we mentioned. Gloriosa seems, I don't know, maybe amenable by comparison because she kind of has like a rapport with Stussy and Newgate. Who knows? But yeah, we can clearly see the downfall of this group. And the chaos that's about to happen. I mean, there's just so much lore here. We see the Rogers pirates. We see like a few of the heavy hitters, and seeing Silver's Rayleigh right next to Roger. Interestingly, so Roger has his straw hat, right?
Which makes sense.
Right. He's not going to give it to Shanks until much later. He doesn't have a mustache. Now, there is in the anime, and well, I guess it's the anime, I think it was the movie, where they find Shanks in the chest. He has a mustache and he's wearing a different hat.
Well, yeah, he looks like how we've always known Gold Roger too.
Right. So that could be an issue with the anime. That could be
it is. It's like you said. Error. Yeah, it's like you said. They asked Oda to give them something to work with, and so what he gave them was literally the teeniest piece of information that he could. It's the same thing with like. In Stampede they did the Laugh Tale reveal. Like that was a big deal, but it wasn't as big of a deal as when the story actually got there. You know, that's when it really clicked for a lot of people. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm not going to dwell too much on it because again, Red itself is not canon. So cool, that's fine. I know, John, you are probably glad to hear that.
I don't love so there's been speculation that some of the kids, the younger like holy knights, or if they're not holy knights, like world noble hunters, trying to say that they're like among those kids that Big Mom ate when she was a kid. Obviously that doesn't really fit or make sense, but I'm sympathetic to the gas mask guy being kind of related to that kid, because we do know that those kids were like, some of them were you know, kind of like offshoots of royals, right? I remember there was some kind of like connection between them. Like there was like the prince, the rejected prince or whatever. I feel like there still could be like some lore continuity because that gas mask does look very similar. But like the whole thing of like, oh, they like survived what happened to Big Mom, I don't buy that at all. It seems like you don't either, since you're shaking your head.
I'm basically of the mind that these are all probably holy knights or holy knights to be. One of the things that stands out to me. Yeah, I think this is all set up because this is what Oda does. He loves drawing a silhouette or a character design and then revisits it when the time comes. But also, none of them are wearing helmets. None of them.
Yeah.
They're out here breathing the commoner air, just like the Gorosei. They're like just like the people who just aren't that ridiculous, even though there are plenty of celestial dragons here in their bubble helmets. Like I think that's a bigger delineation than anything else is, hey, you have the people who are the hardcores, and then you have the inbreds. That's really what it looks like.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair analysis, and it's hard to piece out the silhouettes. I mean, we can see that a lot of them look pretty young. One of them says that trophy will belong to the Man-Mare family, so we get at least one kind of reference to another family, and that kind of debunks the whole, like, oh, maybe everybody's, like, maybe the Garland family, like, that's all the Holy Knights or something. No, that's clearly not the case. Love that panel with Garp laying down, listening to music.
Such a Luffy panel. I love that, like, Roger very much invokes Ace in his kind of flashback form. Garp it feels like an old Luffy. Like, that's such a, it's kind of heartbreaking because you never get to see Ace, reach that stage. But we've seen it in SBS. Again, SBS stuff kind of helped set this up.
I think we already knew
that's why we haven't seen Rocks for reasons. But
I think we already knew that Garp didn't have that scar, or did have that scar by the time he got to God Valley. I wasn't sure if that was confirmed, because I think we saw like images or like him as a youth or whatever. We haven't seen young Garp that often, and I don't remember if it was confirmed in my head whether or not he got it from God Valley or something afterward. But no, at this point he's a full-on rival with Roger, and it makes sense because of their ages. I mean, they're not super young. I mean, they're this is 38 years ago, so they are in their late 30s, early 40s. So Garp, I think, is 40, and Roger's 39, 38, I think it says. So yeah, that seems to track with me in terms of the, like, where they would be at in their respective careers. They've had a lot of bouts and everything. We know at this point, like, Roger has made it to Lodestar, I think, by now. And he's sort of still in the process of, like, figuring things out, like, more endgame, in terms of, like, okay, been to Lodestar. Now it's like a matter of, like, the poneglyph collection process.
So that brings me to what I am finding, like, the most tantalizing of all of this part of the flashback, and we'll talk more about Kuma, I'm sure, here soon enough. What is Roger talking about? What is my man on about here? He says,
let's see. Oh yeah, it's been a whole year. Do you have any idea how I felt all this time?
What is that about? What other thing happened that I don't know about, Oda? Like, is this I'm assuming it's a conflict with Rocks, but could it be that they both got to Lodestar?
Yeah, I don't know, because we really don't know that much about what was going on with Roger at this time. And yeah, like, just genuinely, like, where the crew was at in terms of their infamy too, because this is supposed to be where Roger becomes super infamous with the Marines. This is, I think, going to be where Roger pulls off some pretty insane stuff in order to essentially help Garp defeat Zebek and the other way around, right?
Yeah, so they have to team up too. It's so weird looking at this. Like, right now, it doesn't seem that way. It seems like a three-way fight.
Right. And it definitely seems like, yeah, we even see, like, Rock says, wait, Rocks, or no, Roger says, wait, Rocks, out of my way, Roger. It looks like, yeah, they have some kind of conflict here. Now, at this point, they don't know the history of the world. They haven't been to Laugh-Tale yet. They don't know, like, the secret of the world government. It's unclear if they know about the ancient weapons, right? I've seen a lot of chatter where people are saying, like, this is where Uranus is supposed to be, and maybe that's the treasure. I don't fully buy that. I feel like there's got to be something else going on here. I don't think it's poneglyphs.
Whatever the treasure had to be, it had to be on Fulalead, and it had to be something that no one crew had control of. Whatever it is, my assumption is it's Kaido's devil fruit. That seems to be the most likely, or the pawpaw fruit. I think either one of those could be it, because those are the two that are named specifically. Those are the two targets that Ginny names specifically for their plan, which is why I assume, by the way, those are the two that we see the kids with. Those are the only two they cared about.
I don't think it's the fruits.
Could be but it could be a misdirection. It's entirely possible it's a misdirection. They don't say for sure, and if it was something that obvious, generally you would think Oda would do that. Like he's not really like gonna lie.
I think that's why because Linlin says, let's just steal what we're after and scram. But that's the thing. She's after the fruits. And I think that's got to be part of it at least. But I feel like there's still going to be, like, I like the idea of one of the fruits. I know we talked about this last time too, being the whatever Blackbeard's fruit is. Like if it's something connected to like something that Zebek has in mind. But that's the thing. I always kind of assumed that Zebek had that fruit. And either, like, I don't know if it could mean that he eats it at God Valley or he already has it and it's just not that fruit at all. But I mean, at least at this point, we can say that, like, okay, these are not all mythical fruits, right? The pawpaw fruit's not mythical. So anything is possible here. I think we can write off a few options for fruits that I think some people were jumping at, and I don't think is the case. One thing I was curious about is Sengoku supposed to be here? I don't think so. And I know some people were saying, like, why was Garp sent here instead of like admirals? And I think the thing to remember, and I don't know if you would agree, is that first of all, he's a vice admiral, and we rarely see admirals leaving the Grand Line in the New World because the balance of power is so precise. We don't know the makeup of the powers right now. Like, it's not clear if there are 4 emperors at this point or if that's something that happens later. And if there's some reason why, if they did have admirals at this time that, they could call upon who were close enough, whether or not that was possible. Because theoretically, it wouldn't take them that long to cross the Comm Belt because the Marines are able to cross the Comm Belt pretty easily. So it's not like they have to do the roundabout way of traveling like the pirates do. They have the ships that are able to cross. So it's a little unclear to me. That's my guess, is that they know Garp is strong enough to do it, and he's probably their best bet, and he might just be the closest because he's on vacation.
I would wager. I mean, like you noted, Garp has had his reputation, right? It definitely precedes him. He has a long-standing rivalry with Roger. They've probably, fought each other to a draw before. Roger being involved seems to be what sets Kong in his direction of like, hey, we need to get Garp on this because he will act pretty completely and with dedication to the situation just to go toast with Roger. But it's also, I mean, we haven't seen everything, right? Like this is only
Saturn's
glimpse.
Here.
Yeah. You would expect.
What is Saturn doing here? Travis, why is Saturn here?
They enjoy it.
Saturn enjoys it? But
I'm sure.
Do you think all the Gorosei are here or just him?
I don't know. I think he's just here. I think he's just here as like the advisory. I mean, like they're celestial dragons. Like we have to remember that, like, regardless of what their history actually turns out to be, I think we're both very much in the, like, they are the originals, but those ideas come from somewhere. If they are the original, members of the 20, those are where those ideas came from.
You might be right, but I kind of lean toward the idea that whatever's on this island is kind of related to something really dangerous that would warrant Saturn coming here.
Maybe. I mean, there's also just the very nature of the resources, right? He is the science minister. It is not outside the realm of possibility that after they do all of their, war crimes, that they are going to try to take the island resources, and that might require his, hands. I don't know. Claws.
We'll find out soon. Yeah.
We're gonna find out. Yeah, I do want to offer one crazy theory about this whole little conflict before we move too far away.
Is it related to Saturn?
Not exactly, but it is to what we were talking about just a second ago.
Okay, because I have something about Saturn. But
with Roger and Rox and all of this, I know they said to Odin and Whitebeard when they got to Lodestar Island, they realized something was incomplete. Right?
Yes,
something tipped them off. But I can't help but shake the sense that something happens here that is actually the tip-off to everything.
Yeah, that's something what I was thinking
Rox
too.
Knows that Roger doesn't until now.
Yeah, finding out that it's like the key to all this is the poneglyphs, because it would make sense in this because it takes them 12 years to do everything that they do, because that's how long it takes for Shanks to reach that age. If I'm looking at the timing right, and it's like 30 or so years, Yeah, because this is 38 years ago, then that would make it like 20 odd years. They're searching around until they find Odin. So yeah, that kind of fits there.
So yeah,
So you think it's related to poneglyphs?
It could be poneglyphs, or it could be that there is something to investigate.
Yeah, a character who knows too much, and that's why Saturn is there.
Yeah, it just seems like there's got to be something that serves as like a clue or a hint. And I mean,
what if Saturn chose this island because he knew there was a poneglyph here, and that's the resource he wants to plunder? Doesn't really care about, because I thought that was weird that they would be going to all this trouble. And if this was an island unaffiliated with the world government, it would make sense that if they didn't know that there was a poneglyph here, not a road poneglyph, but maybe a poneglyph that explains the road poneglyphs and tells you like. Yeah, like, oh, this is how it works.
They hate all the poneglyphs anyway, so I don't even think it has to be specifically that. But I mean, that ties it all together.
That would make a lot of sense, especially because like, why does the island disappear, right? Like, if there's no way to like.
Yeah, that's a weird thing too, right? Because as of right now, at least with the information we have in the text, this is an island rich in resources. They're annexing it, right? They're offended that it's called God Valley. Did they destroy it out of spite, or did something happen to the island itself that warranted this action?
Right. Yeah, I think the history with Ryuma, especially, that we're sort of inferring from the way the mountain has been split and the way that it has a Western vibe, this island. I could see a connection there. I could see something going on that like ties all this stuff together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely possible. I would love for Monsters to end like the anime adaptation and them drop the little tease at the end, like zoom out and it's the silhouette of God Valley
carving a poneglyph,
or just like literally just like the whole one shot finishes, zoom out and it's God Valley, and then it ends and we're just left to
that's the other
in that.
Travis, that's the other connection, because Ryuma's from Wano. He knows the language. He knows, like, if somebody could carve a poneglyph or add to it, Odin was able to do it. So could Ryuma.
Well, that was Kozuki, wasn't it? That was specifically because he was Kozuki, though, right?
I don't remember if you had to be Kozuki, but I thought it was something kind of specific
to Wano. Because that's why they needed specifically Odin, because he knew how to do it, and Momonosuke never learned, so it kind of dies with him. That's why Oda needed the retcon of Grandpa being alive.
That's right. That was a pretty funny retcon.
What a funny one. What a great reminder that the monarchy is stupid.
Saturn.
Oh man.
Saturn and presumably the rest of the Gorosei are immortal. They apparently either age extremely slowly, but all evidence has just been so overwhelming to this. I mean, this is supposed to be 38 years ago. Saturn looks exactly the same age. I think that, it just seems as clear as ever that these guys, they talk like they know like what's going on in terms of the Void Century, like they were there. It just, everything seems to be just landing in that direction. And it is a little weird because we know there's like portraits of them, and it's like, how much of that is an open secret? Like, what are they doing if they are Eternals or whatever? But yeah.
I mean, it's maybe just one of those things where like within the Sacred Land, they just have a thing covering their butts on this. But I mean, you look at every other character who appears here. Not everybody is that young. We talked about ages just a second ago, but I mean, even just looking at like Lin, it's a drastic difference. This is a long time ago. You'd think there would be some sort of age differential on Saturn at some point. Like we're very much getting close to a point where we can no longer accept any other ideas.
Yeah, we're really past that.
Unless it's their powers, but like locking them at that kind of age seems it would be weird if like they got their powers at that age, right?
Yes. I really wanted to hype up Ginny. Great character. They give her so much, like such an interesting function in this like little ragtag group. Basically, Oda is like, oh yeah, so the God Valley incident, pretty much the thing that shook the entire world and changed the course of history, all came down to this little kid, basically being WikiLeaks, like basically leaking this out.
Quintessential shonen, right? A kid can change the world. Like,
sure,
perfect, magnificent.
It works pretty well.
Though it does also, I think, speak a lot to where Bonnie gets some of her own espionage skills. Because this is a woman who walked right into Mary Joa and walked out.
It's true. It's true. But I got to tell you, the more and more we just see this like hatred that Saturn has of Kuma because he's a Buccaneer, I just can't buy that Bonnie is like their kid, that like she's biologically related to Kuma. It just doesn't work.
Because he doesn't have the same reaction to her, right?
Right. He like despises, like it's clearly a racial thing. It's clearly like the Buccaneers are an existential threat, because I think like more and more, I think people are subscribing to the idea that Joy Boy was a Buccaneer because of the size of the straw hat and the just like constant connections. I think it fits really well, because the whole idea of like Joy Boy being a giant, it did stretch, imagination, no pun intended, because that hat wasn't that big. So yeah, this whole idea that like Bonnie is like his literal daughter, I'm still full swing in the idea that he cloned, or he was able to clone Ginny. Like something traumatic and horrible happened to Ginny. Maybe he lost himself for a while there. Maybe the idea of Kuma being a tyrant isn't that far removed from like propaganda. Maybe he did kind of have a dark turn after something bad happened to her for whatever reason, and he found a way to clone her.
I mean, we know the way that he did it was a relationship with Vegapunk. Like, if that happened, that's the obvious answer.
That's the answer, yeah.
Oda brought this out, because we haven't revisited that at all.
We see Kuma and Vegapunk having the conversation like way earlier in the arc, that flashback of like, he clearly had to do something. Yeah, he wanted something from Vegapunk, and like, what could it be? And I think him wanting to bring Ginny back, right? And maybe he didn't expect that this would happen, like bringing Ginny back as his daughter. Like maybe it couldn't be like that. I don't know. There's all kinds of things that could tie in.
I mean, he lost his own parents. He has that trauma. He has this dream he inherited from his father. It makes a lot of sense that he would want to raise it, do the Jango Fett thing, and actually have a kid to raise, right? To pass on that legacy, etc.
Yeah.
But like you're right, Saturn's reaction, not just without the contempt, but just even the way that he, again, we talked about this before, the way that he refers to Kuma in relation to Bonnie is very curious. Though it does also make me very curious. It seems like the Gorosei just know that cloning is a thing then.
Well, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be known to them that, that like Kuma wasn't her, because maybe they know that she doesn't have Buccaneer blood. She doesn't have like Buccaneer genetics.
Yeah, I guess they had a clone literally working for them, and they would know that Stussy is not the same Stussy, because she's also not aging notably. But
I think that's
interesting. I wonder if they've commissioned any clones for any reason.
Well, yeah, and I wonder too if I mean, that's don't want to start that, but I do wonder too, like, Kuma eventually becomes a warlord. I think that there is like an understanding between them at a certain point, because otherwise, like, it's not like
none of this makes sense now.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of missing pieces here of like how he gets to that point.
What, like, you would think, like, the Gorosei, like, the warlords have met with the Gorosei. Yeah. The warlords have been in the Sacred Land. And Kuma is one of them. And, like, presumably at the point where we are introduced to Kuma for the very, very first time in that meeting of warlords, presumably the Pacifista Project has already begun, is my assumption.
Right.
But even at that point, what a weird reality that they are letting him operate. Now that we know what we know.
Yeah. There's got to be some kind of deal, kind of arrangement. I mean, we know Kuma loses his will. We know, I mean, even down to the point of like choosing not to reproduce, right? If it really came down to the reason he doesn't have a kid with Ginny, who might, his wife, if that's what happens, would be like, I don't want to have a kid who's going to be a Buccaneer like me, but I do want to have a kid because family's so important, and then, turning to cloning for that reason. I could see that.
Maybe that's very possible. We're going to get so much more of it. It's probably going to be tragic and horrendous and everything, but I'm really curious to see all these little threads get stitched together. Cause like a lot like Doflamingo, a lot like Vegapunk himself, even, we are dealing with a decade plus of threads that are only now starting to sort of weave together.
Right.
And it still feels like we're missing so many pieces. I really do wonder how long this flashback is actually going to go. Genuinely.
Seriously, because there's still so much to cover. Although we have technically covered a lot in just 2 chapters. We've covered like Kuma's like birth, becoming a slave, being on God Valley, breaking out of God Valley, being in the Sorbet Kingdom with Ginny. I mean, it's so far it's moving at a pretty good pace, a good one pace. There are a couple things like, first of all, I really appreciate Ginny's like the shorthand for wiretapping is she has like a little den mochi she puts in her ear. Like I just thought that was kind of a fun little visual quirk. I think I really like how when she's talking about the pawpaw fruit and the mythical Azure dragon, we see the dragon, which kind of more or less looks like, you know, the Kaido version of the fruit. We also see like a cat with a paw. So there is that kind of idea of like, is the pawpaw fruit supposed to be like a bear? Because I know like Kuma's name, bear, Kuma, you know, meaning that. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, that doesn't mean the pawpaw fruit was always like a bear specific thing. I guess I always took it that way.
He doesn't have the ears, right? Like he doesn't grow the ears right away.
Right. That's even more suspicious. And then when Ginny's talking about it, she imagines a cat, and very funny. She imagines like the same kind of cats we see in like Robin's fantasies. Yeah. Which I always love seeing that cat pop up. So there might be something to that. There might be something to like why it's a cat.
It could be he was wearing the ears the whole time as like a tribute to her.
To Ginny?
Like he's just literally wearing bear ears to.
But she's not a bear.
Like, no, but that's what she calls him, right?
Oh, she calls him Kumachi. Yeah, but his name is already Kuma. So
right. It's just now it means something to him.
What?
It's we have a man who dresses like a baby, all right, because it makes, I mean, you want to tell me Kuma doesn't have the capacity to be a wife guy, a senior pink level white guy, guy? Yeah. Come on, man. Come on.
Also, seeing the arrow in his back, I mean, he really is like pretty hardy. I mean, the constitution that he has at this point.
He survives a confrontation with Saturn. Sanji couldn't even get up after that.
Right. I was going to bring that up next. So the whole thing where it looks like he's getting up and like, it's hard to tell if Saturn is using that same power. His eye doesn't do the same thing, but he did attack him, right? It's hard to tell like what the attack was, because we just see like Saturn, he has his like arm a certain way. He's not in his like full on form, like the bull demon form.
He's ambushed them for sure.
Right. So I don't know if it's like fair to say that it's the same thing as like what Sanji and the rest of them went through. So I don't know about that. But still, it's pretty remarkable.
This just came to my mind too, because we don't know how this confrontation ends, but we know now that Kuma and Eva somehow get away. Kuma saves 500 people. They all get away. The rest of the God Valley incident also occurs. I'm thinking about Saturn's lines before the flashback started, and he talked about Bonnie and Luffy's fate, and like, I'm curious to see if your fate gets you out of here. I wonder if he just left just enough opportunity because he was very curious to see what this little slave boy would do. I wonder about that.
If you like let him survive on a whim, I don't know.
Out of like cockiness or just, I mean, again, he's supposed to be at least theoretically a science minister, so there should be some curiosity from him, right?
There could be something to that, but I don't know. It's hard to square that circle right now, at least.
Yeah, I wish we had more. Like, it was horrifying. It was some of the most horrifying stuff we've ever seen in One Piece, just from the dialogue, and yet I want to know who the rare people were. That sounds terrible.
We do get the confirmation that the Sorbet Kingdom is in the South Blue. I remember once upon a time thinking the Sorbet Kingdom, we might go there after Wano. But nope, we're here. We're here in this flashback. It's in the South Blue, which kind of makes sense. Like, it's a warmer environment, but they have like kind of like ice cream treat locations, so it kind of makes sense now. I always just assumed it was like a full-on like wintry kind of place, so maybe even be in the North Blue, but no. Or I originally thought it might be in the New World. We already kind of talked a little bit about like just, you know, we kind of just get a couple chapters of like peacefulness. We have there's the line where Ivankov, you know, is like saying goodbye to them, and then Kuma says, "For as long as I live, Eva, I'll never forget your face." So we were sharing this in the Discord. There's like people were quick on that line to like start sharing a screenshot of the manga from Marineford where Ivankov runs into Kuma during the Summit War. and he says to Kuma, like, have you really forgotten my face? And it's heartbreaking. It's heart-wrenching. On that note, we do also see some, just so many connections to other things. Like Oda kind of takes an opportunity to do a little bit of like background for Bonnie's crew. Now, we haven't spent a lot of time with Jewelry Bonnie's pirate crew. We've barely interacted with them, but we see her like beat up these two kids for teasing Kuma, who's just been like working super hard. He's carrying the logs like we saw, and I think it was like that SBS. That's a reference to a Japanese folk tale. And those kids start attacking him, and if you actually look at like their hats and like their faces and stuff, they look a lot like the younger versions of two of the crew members that Bonnie had. So I forget when was the last time we saw them. I don't know what their like status is at this point, but I thought that was a really fun
They would have been defeated by Blackbeard, right?
So they might be captured. They might be impelled down or something. They might have escaped. So no idea what might be going on there.
There's also, I'm just throw it out there. We've talked about it before. He carries a Bible around. Presumably it's actually about Nika, but the irony is not lost on me that we have what is effectively a traveling pious man doing regular labor, but also can heal wounds. The irony is not lost on me here.
It is interesting because Buccaneer, that is a Taino thing. So listeners who don't know, I'm Puerto Rican, and so part of my family goes back to Taino history, and I won't give you a long history lesson, but the Tainos were like long thought to be extinct. We're talking about the indigenous people in the Caribbean who Christopher Columbus like basically helped genocide. And Buccaneer comes from the Taino word bucan, and so like the whole story around that is that basically like French pirates and sailors and stuff would go to these places where the Tainos lived, and they would learn how to like cook food on a bucan, which is like kind of an outdoor griddle where you could like cook meats and stuff. They were called buccaneers because of their connection to the natives. Now, this is kind of interesting because the idea of like the church, the Bible stuff, the kind of religious piety stuff, that's also a pretty rich traditional thing of like the Spanish coming to the Caribbean and trying to essentially like prevent them from some of them from being enslaved, trying to say that their religions weren't that different from the Spanish, and so they weren't heathens or whatever. So they're like, oh, the Tainos believe in a heaven and a hell, kind of like us. And like there were these like supposedly righteous like friars and stuff, and there's a lot to this, and I don't know how much of it Oda is like directly trying to lift from, but it is kind of remarkable. I mean, it makes sense because pirates in the Caribbean they're so closely tied together, and this manga has always been like paid very close attention to the way the pirates operated in the West Indies, in the Antilles, up across the coasts. So the idea of like Kuma kind of being both like a friar and a buccaneer, but having a connection to Nika, which is more the indigenous thing. It's more of like a tradition of something that is like trying to be erased. We could maybe think about that a little more, and maybe think of like that's like a key to like the secret of this, of like how all this stuff is connected potentially.
That's some really good insight.
An ancient kingdom, El Dorado, City of Gold. The all the theories of like the One Piece being a location. I mean, a lot of it. You could throw darts all across this board and hit multiple bullseyes.
And we know Oda does that kind of research. It would shock me more if he didn't know that history.
Yeah. How does it connect to the Egyptian stuff that he does with like Nefertari Lily, and like he's merging all these mythologies, right? And it's always been pretty fascinating the way he does that. So yeah, it's very well done, but it's got me very curious. But yeah, I gotta say, I'm ready for my heart to be broken. I'm not ready, actually. I take that back. But yeah, there's the whole thing where he's just like, "Oh, you eat so much, Ginny." It's like, yep. I think like people who are trying to say that like that she wasn't Bonnie's mom. I mean, like, come on, guys. Like,
she's like, either a clone or this is her mother. Like, those are the two options. Like, Oda could not be more blatant if he put a friggin' title card on the screen.
I did see some people being like, "Oh, but Big Mom Lin, her lipstick looks kind of like Bonnie's." Like, all right, you're clearly just trying to
cope.
Yeah,
cope.
there's no other word for it, huh?
Yep. I don't know if you have any other thoughts. I have one more thought, one more wild firecracker to throw into the air.
Let's go.
You said you wanted a cover story, and now that we know that cover stories no longer have to happen in the present, I want Eva's free roaming sea adventure cover story from the moment he leaves here because now we know, we speculated that we might see a young dragon during this. That did not happen.
How
and now
incredible,
now Kuma and Eva have separated. So now does Eva meet Dragon first? It kind of sounds like that might be the case, or maybe not. Who knows? It doesn't seem like Dragon or Eva know what Kuma's intentions are, so it feels to me like he's kind of the odd one out. But now we know, how did Eva meet Dragon? Did it happen when they were out at sea?
How does Kaido know Roger? What was going on with that?
Again, like, did they have what happened a year ago? Is this not the first time they fought? Like, did Roger beat the crap out of Kaido? Like, is that why Kaido's so messed up because the only man who could beat him is dead? Like, what amazing layers that have come out of what is effectively just 3 panels of some dudes. Right? Like, man.
How about this?
This is why this is the best. This is why
how about we know Shirahoshi is an ancient weapon, right? What if Uranus is also an ancient weapon, but only if you eat a certain type of devil fruit, and that devil fruit was there too?
That's been speculated before that, like,
that's what
there could be a devil fruit some devil fruit component to this. I mean, if there is, extrapolating out Joy Boy and his relationship to the ancient weapons, hypothetically, the Nika fruit is something that's a part of this, potentially. Like, is Luffy able to use the voice of all things and connect with stuff because of the Nika fruit? Because he was already in the process of awakening it. Because let's be honest, like, the very concept of Gears, in retrospect, like, was him working his way to awakening the fruit.
I thought it was because he inherited Roger's will, and Roger had the voice of all things.
It's kind of hard to say, right? I'm just kind of spitballing. It could just be sheer willpower. It could be Luffy, because Luffy is different. He doesn't really have the same kind of normal, conventional sensibilities. He's just attuned to it, like that. Roger was kind of similar the same way. I know that doesn't necessarily explain, like, Momonosuke, but we don't even really fully understand what the voice even is. So I'm just kind of throwing things at the wall here now that we're wrapping up. I need some more yarn for my board.
There was something else I wanted to mention too, but I lost my train of thought. I think it had to do with rocks and all of them. It had to do something on the island, but there is something that's been kind of bugging me a little bit about what's going to happen next. Like when we come back to the God Valley incident and see how all this stuff like plays out. But yeah, I don't remember exactly what I was going to get at there. Oh well,
it'll come to you and we can talk about it in the Discord you just learned existed.
I think, honestly, I think it had something to do with never mind. I'm just gonna rant and rave trying to piece it back together.
3 hours. You're gonna be like, we got it edit it in.
Almost there. I did want to mention, for those of you who haven't been watching the anime, highly recommend you get back into it now while you have the chance, just because the anime, we're seeing a lot of the post Wano stuff, or the post raid, I guess. We're seeing some more detail. We're actually seeing less detail than I thought we would. I thought we would spend like a whole chapter, for example, on Kinemon reuniting with his wife. We don't. We just it's kind of following the manga pretty closely there. Where it's skipping a lot of stuff. And
I was shocked because I remember saying to you, like, they changed the OP. It feels like we're gonna get some filler content, and there hasn't been that much of it.
Right, and that still may happen, but it's kind of like they're cutting at least to the end of Wano a little sooner than I expected, rather than dragging it out. We already have Green Bull. And first of all, Green Bull versus King and Queen, which happened in the last episode. Fun fight. It was kind of cool to see, particularly like seeing like how that happened and not nerfing them as easily as it was in the manga. I kind of appreciate the anime is expanding it a little bit more and showing how Green Bull's powers work. But watching Green Bull fight the samurai, incredible. Like, it's so good. And also, we see Shanks and his crew off the coast of Wano, and we see them in way more detail. There's a little bit more sort of like a lingering there. They even like bring in like a quick little flashback. It's fun kind of reading the comments too, because people are like, so that's how Luffy got his scar. And then all the replies just being like, no, 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 no. Like acting like that's new information.
Oh, man.
Still funny though.
Oh man.
It's like I was there when the Book of Magic was written. But yeah, I highly recommend it. It's one of those anime episodes that like every once in a while the budget kicks in. So I recommend. I know some people have been a little disappointed that we're not getting our big like all out like banquet kind of scene yet. Like they're kind of partying and goofing off, but it's not as like rapturous, I guess. Which I remember the manga was like that too, and it felt a little bit more like they were enjoying the festival. And I don't know, I thought there was something a little bit more fitting about that. I guess it's tough because we're talking about what 4-5 years of Wano in the anime, and it's been a while. With the manga,
it's worth noting, especially with a little bit of hindsight. It really does feel like even Oda was just kind of like ready to move on. Like he knew that it went longer than I think he even planned, and it was just like, okay, we've done it. I've taken this break. I've said the words Final Saga. We need to hit the gas. Like if he had lingered longer, I think he wouldn't have been satisfied with it. I don't think we would have been satisfied with it. The anime can do what it wants at that point. Like
the anime can do what it wants. You know what I mean?
It's always been the rule, though, right? The anime has always been a lot more flexible with those things, for better and for worse. And I think we're definitely in a better spot right now. I like that it does the little bit of flashback with Shanks in particular. I like that it kind of helps tease out that mystery of like, how much does he actually know? What's his actual role in this? And it really drags out him sitting down with Beckman and doing the line like, that's all good. That's great stuff. That's the kind of like build up you want to see in something cinematic like that the manga doesn't have to do.
I still can't believe what I was going to say. It was a good point too. It's a good one. It was one of those ones you're going to be like, oh, that's interesting. Next week, we will be talking about chapter 1097, which I'm hoping to read myself in Japanese tomorrow. If not, either way, we'll get to it. This is actually my first time reading the official translation, and definitely some differences, some stuff I was kind of curious about because it can be pretty difficult, like reading these when you're not a native Japanese speaker. But and then I think. I don't know what the schedule is, but next break we'll probably be jumping into Freerin finally. But of course, hit up that Discord. I'm excited to check it out for apparently the first time. But no, we're in there. We're hanging out, and we'll keep you posted and hit us up if you have any suggestions too for anything you want us to talk about and get into. I've been watching a few new anime, so hopefully on an episode that isn't as stacked as this one, we'll have time for an anime check-in maybe next week. But that's hard to believe that next week won't be stacked.
we're gonna be at a point, I think, for at least another week where we're just kind of overwhelmed. So I will put the call out here for those in who do participate in the Discord. I'm not going to give away too much, but we are in a place where we're going to be very quickly heading towards a cutoff for my anime section when it comes to talking about anime of the year. So if you have a recommendation for series that you have not heard us talk about on here, or just in general something you liked, let me know about it so that I have some stuff on my watch list between now and we start planning those things. I would love to make sure I didn't miss anything.
To all my Mushoku Tensei fans, we have a job to do. And I will say, Travis, it's time to end the show because I want to. Volume 25 of the light novel, Mushoku Tensei, recently came out, and I have been. I was already reading the webcomic from 10 years ago, but it's not a great translation. But yeah, I want to go do that right now. So we'll see y'all later.
Do it.